Hey, what's going on? In this video, I'm going to show you how I made $48,164 last month. That's 48.164K profit, not revenue. And I make that disambiguation because a ton of people on the internet love just jumping on and saying, I made $1 million last month and here's how. And then because of margins, they only really make like 5 or 10% of that or something. So the whole idea of this video and basically every other one that I've recorded and I'm going to record, this is to show you guys like the realities behind operating an internet business, the highs, the lows, everything in between. Now this video, what I'm going to do is go through the two businesses that I own that generate me about $20,000 a month each. December, the month where I made that $48,000, was certainly exceptional insofar that I usually do not pay myself that much money. I usually don't make that much money. There were a couple of key things that resulted in me paying myself a little bit more. On average, it's usually about 30K. Anywho, let's dive in. So I run two businesses. The first is called 1 Second Copy. This is essentially a productized content marketplace. And all that really means is, instead of being like a traditional agency where, you'll sign up and I'll try and pitch you on some big monthly package and you'll be assigned an account manager, that sort of thing. A productized agency just strips away literally everything except for the actual deliverable that you're getting. And then usually gives you like just a very simple, straightforward way to order something. And then does it all in like a completely automated fashion. And so what exactly do I mean by this? Well, in our case, we're offering content writing services. And so if you think about the way that a content writing agency usually operates, it's like, you sign up, you have some type of kickoff call, you have some type of SEO strategy, like content roadmap. You have like all of this stuff around the actual deliverable that, your agency supposedly produces, which is the content. And so we don't have any of that. When you work with us, you basically just get a dashboard, which looks something like this. This isn't actually accurate, unfortunately, just because the dark mode fix that we wanted to put into our app just still, we just still continuously have trouble with that. Might be because I'm the sole developer, who knows. Anywho, it's like an app and you have a little dashboard and then you can like create a request for that using, let me just show you actually. This is the light mode app as it is right now without those updates. You can go down and order content and then you can just like basically select whatever you want. Almost like you'd select something like a SaaS, right? And so the productized solution is basically you pay a certain number of words up front at the beginning of the month, and then you can just slice and dice those however you want using this interface. But there's no account manager, there's no book a call with us to go over your weekly progress update. There's none of that. The only thing that we offer is the content itself, and it makes it so easy for our company to staff because we don't need to hire like, one account manager for every 3 clients. We just hire like writers, basically, writers and editors. And then everything else is kind of handled on the back end using automations. So this is what the pricing looks like. This is very much squarely what I would consider like a commodity type of service. So you know how the vast majority of people, when you are, watching like motivational YouTube shit, they're like, oh man, you got to make sure that you compete in a market of one and that you make your service completely exceptional and so different from all the other services that like, it doesn't matter what price you charge because people are going to be willing to pay it. It's not that I don't disagree with that, but there is certainly a way to success that doesn't follow that. And that's basically what we at 1 Second Copy have done. Could we make more money if we tried to make it this all-inclusive service? Probably, but I like the way that it is right now because there's very little headache, there's very little upkeep. I don't really have to do anything in this business anymore because I've hired a manager. And basically it's just a very straightforward way of like getting articles, blogs, or ebook chapters and that sort of deal. So that's what the business is. How it operates on the back end is pretty interesting. We have a ClickUp pipeline end-to-end that I set up using what's called the theory of constraints methodology. The theory of constraints methodology is basically a project management paradigm developed by a guy called Eli Goldratt. And the way that this works is and I talk about this all the time, both the clients on YouTube and just everything. So they're definitely better summaries of how this process works. But basically the theory of constraints visualizes your entire business as a pipeline from end to end, where there's your raw goods coming in at the beginning of the pipeline, and then there's some transformation happening in the middle, and then there's the finished high quality products coming out at the end of the pipeline. And you basically make money based off the distance between your like shitty raw good and then the high quality product. And like that's where your arbitrage is. So in the theory of constraints, your whole goal is to maximize the width of that pipeline at every step. If you notice that there's a space in your pipeline, like let's say in a writing agency, it might be like the QA or the editing, and that space is like constraining or bottlenecking the rest of your flow. All the theory of constraints is it's just a systematic way of alleviating that and then setting up your pipeline in such a way that like every stage is just moving along as constantly and as high throughput as possible. So that's the background for how I set this up and the way that I built this out in Practicum. is in ClickUp, which is a project management tool. And essentially we have like a variety of different ways that we manage the content. But the big one is the content pipeline, where a new article will come into the top of the queue and it'll jump into awaiting assignment, which is just this flexible end-to-end queue. And then it'll sort of be acknowledged, it'll move to assigned. When it starts being worked on, it'll move to writing. When it starts being edited, it'll move on to editing. And then there are a few other stages here, but generally speaking, we just continuously move down the pipeline at every step, and it's fully self-managed. I don't really have to do anything, which is quite nice. The writers are usually adept enough at self-managing all of this stuff. The way that I hired the freelancers was a combination of Upwork, Indeed.com, which is pretty big, and then like Facebook groups and stuff like that as well, and that was pretty important. And then we also have a few kind of executive assistants and administrative people scattered all throughout the world, but primarily in the Philippines, which allows us to take advantage of like market arbitrage. So my company doesn't have to spend $40 or $50 an hour to get the equivalent skill or talent that somebody in the first world might charge, just because they have absolutely egregious living expenses and that sort of thing. So yeah, that's more or less the business in a nutshell in terms of how we actually do what we do. And then the last thing I wanted to cover was how we get customers. So at the very beginning of this company, the vast majority of the customers that we got were through platforms. So that is like Fiverr, Upwork, Crowd Content, tons of these other like online writing platforms that were essentially like gig platforms where you have to fill out some application and you have to like show that like you're capable of writing at a certain quality or whatever before you can get in. And then once you're in, you can like browse proposals and that sort of deal. And that's pretty cool. Definitely got a really good start. We probably scaled well past $20,000 a month just using platforms. I'm not the kind of guy that ever says no to money. I think a lot of other people on the internet will always, they'll talk about how like you want to develop your own lead generation system that like isn't dependent on any platform or isn't dependent. Nobody holds your balls in a vice essentially. But I've always kind of laughed at that. Like any platform or any business in 2024 that's successful utilizes some platform. So you're just kind of picking your battles. Like, who do I want to cut my balls firmly in their hands? And in my case, we picked Fiverr, we picked Upwork, we picked a couple of other platforms. So that's how we got our start. We essentially like tried to reverse engineer what made successful freelance or agency operations on Upwork possible. And then we set up the agency profile and just a bunch of infrastructure to accommodate that. And that worked really well. And then eventually we started growing so quickly because of that we had to put some kind of slow down caps in place. And then I think that just made us like really in demand. Remember, this was before GPT-4, before all these like super advanced AI writing platforms that made it really easy to whip up your own similar quality content. So you sort of needed a writer, right? And yeah, that was pretty good. And then after a certain point, we developed a bunch of email systems, and they were all cold email systems where our offer was essentially, we will write you a free high quality article that's a sample on anything you're choosing. We'll take care of it from end to end. All you have to do is respond to this email with what you want the article to be about, and we'll do it because we know that like we need to provide value up front in order to get a client. And that was pretty good, I think, just because of the wording of the email campaign and the transparency and stuff like that. And we managed like a basically fully automated system for that, where they'd fill out a form with the sample that they wanted, and then that would automatically go into the queue that I showed you earlier. And then that queue would just like, a writer would be assigned to it. When it moved to ready for submission, it would automatically be sent via email back to the client. Super straightforward, streamlined process where we got the internal cost of production down to maybe like $8 or $9. And the value in having an internal cost of production of $8 or $9 for acquisition is our lifetime customer value at that point was probably about $700, $800. So, if we send out 3 of those and then one of them is like, oh yeah, this sounds great, I'd like to work with you, then you can imagine how that's an internal cost of maybe like $25 to $30 to acquire a $700 client. Not accounting for, like the lead generation costs and stuff like that, which are usually another $20 or $30 per person. So yeah, like the acquisition amount was probably like 4 or 5% per client, which is pretty sick. And that enabled us to scale very quickly. Now this business peaked at about $90-something thousand earlier on in the year. I think like it was April or May or something like that. Before then, at the beginning of the year, we were at about 60K, and now we're hovering around 50K. I'm attributing the growth and then the fall specifically to GPT or ChatGPT kind of gaining a ton of popularity, and then companies that otherwise would have hired us to write all their SEO listicle stuff no longer have to, because they could just use ChatGPT to write something that's like 70% of the way there. And then instead of needing like an agency to do it or a productized solution like ours, they can just use like ChatGPT and then have an in-house admin or something, fix it and bring it up to par. So it's not the worst thing in the world, but that's where the company is right now. And I made about $20,000 from that. That was $20,000 in profit, and then we also had a couple of big clients that month that just gave us significantly more content than we usually got. So that's what enabled me to bump up from my average of 30K to 48. And then the other business that I operate is sort of like a consultancy. It's a very interesting sort of business, and I used to have a partner for it. It was the same partner that I started One Second Copy with, and I no longer work with on this business, just because we decided that we'd go our separate ways. No hard feelings or anything. I really enjoy working with them. But the way that this business works is it's essentially like, at One Second Copy, I built a bunch of systems that enabled me to make a lot of money quickly and like get clients. And then I use those systems to get clients for my service, which is One Second Copy. And that was good. What I realized is, why don't I just use the systems and then sell the systems as a way to make money for any business? Like, isn't the upside potential significantly higher over there? What if instead it's like instead of content writing, it's a very high growth industry, maybe something like lead gen or some info product business. And then I just build a system that enables them to go from 300K to like $1 million. Well, I'm pretty sure if I were to take a percentage of that 300K to $1 million, that's $700,000. I'd make way more money than I would with One Second Copy. And so far, it appears to be true. This is essentially like, fractional operations consultancy, I want to say, where I am the sole operator at this moment in time, yours truly. And I will essentially take a lot of the systems that I developed for One Second Copy and other businesses that I've worked with in the past, and then I'll just like paste those into new businesses, apply a little bit of my project management knowledge sort of as a consultant, and then grow and scale the hell out of every business that I work with. And this is really where my heart is, because I find this so much more interesting than just like iterating the same process over and over and over again. Every business I work with is usually quite different, and that enables just a very interesting sort of workday. I've worked with a variety of businesses on this now, from like 6-figure smaller companies that are just getting started that might have some startup capital, to 7-figure companies, which are probably the most common, to even 8-figure companies to develop systems that like shave 3 or 4% off their margins. So depending on whatever place that they're in, my value proposition sort of changes, and it's no longer like if you're very early on in your business, I'm usually pitching how I'm going to help you make money up front. If you're a little later on in the business, you guys are at 7 or 8 figures, I'm usually pitching how like my operations will improve your profitability and your margins, just because that's really where the priority is. And I tried doing this in a productized way as well, where I would like charge somebody a fixed amount of money, $4,400 a month, and then offer some type of fixed service. And it doesn't really seem to be working that well. People like to have consultants on retainer, I found, and it seems just quite difficult to pitch them on a deliverable that I can consistently provide every single month for $4,400. So yeah, it's not that part's not going the best. But my pricing does seem to be relatively variable, relatively ad hoc, and it's resulted in me being able to make a ton of money. Now, since I'm the sole operator of this, the margins of this business are well over 85%. I have basically no software costs. The only cost that I have is the acquisition of customers. And for this, I followed a very similar system to what I did for One Second Copy, which is where when I started predominantly on Upwork, and then I gained a lot of notoriety on Upwork over the course of 3 or 4 months. And then, I started getting a bunch of referrals, and then those referrals from there gave me a little bit of latitude to explore alternative lead generation strategies like email. And now I have a couple of email clients, I have a couple of Upwork clients, then I have a bunch of referral clients as well. So that's how that works. If you are interested in learning about those Upwork strategies that I mentioned earlier, I'm more than happy to walk you through them in a future video. Just let me know. I mean, like, I have an entire playbook, and I have a little bit of a following on Twitter now, and I think a lot of them are just waiting for me to like drop my big Upwork guide. So maybe that'll be motivation. But yeah, I usually just like record an extremely custom, high quality video for every single proposal that I send. It takes me like an hour or 2 every single day to like get through 4 or 5. But then at the end of it, I usually have like 3 of them say, hey, I'd really like to chat with you. And this is only really capable if you're really good at what you do, and you got to know your stuff. But I was just blessed that for the last 8 years, I basically just locked myself in my basement in my pajamas and just learned all about how this stuff works. So yeah, I hope that makes sense. Where do I go from here? I would like to continue making large amounts of money. Like, this has been great because I bought a lot of financial flexibility for myself. And I'm not gonna lie, like, everybody says that money doesn't make you happy, but it sure as hell can not make you sad. I hope I said that right. I come from a family that's historically, like, our family was bankrupt for a large portion of my childhood, like in bankruptcy. And I think that just colored how I viewed money growing up. And to me, to be able to make $48,164 in 1 month, like, that's more money than I probably made in the entire year in 2020. Granted, that was exceptional because it was COVID, but maybe even like 2021 as well. So just having access to that capital has freed me up from problems that I didn't really know that I had. And I would highly, highly recommend every man, woman, or child at some point in their life try and like give their life like a couple of years to like really try and push and try and make a ton of money. Like it's freaking amazing, and it does change the way that you view the world. Do I think I'm going to maintain $48,000 a month every single month? No, I don't think so. Probably not for the next 6 months or so. I am working on a bunch of lead generation strategies that should assist me with this, like this YouTube channel, for instance, like my Twitter. But I think after I peaked at that 48K, I just sort of realized, hey, this is amazing. I wonder if there's a way that I could sustain this a little more passively than just constantly working my ass off every day. And so I'm going to take a back seat. I'll probably make between 20 to 30K over the course of the next half year. I'm trying to strategize and come up with like a different way to break through that next plateau. And I think that a lot of entrepreneurs do this. They'll achieve some success and then they'll be like, okay, but at what cost? Is there any way that I can achieve the same level of success or more with less cost? And they usually have to ease off the pedal a little bit, figure that shit out, and then re-up or re-attack whatever business that they're doing next. So yeah, that's it in a nutshell. We got 1 second copy over here and then left click. If you guys got any questions about how any of this stuff works, I mean, I'm still very early on this YouTube career. I'm more than happy to like literally invite y'all to a Slack channel or a Discord or something and just walk you through exactly what each of you guys needs to do if you're at a point in your business careers where I think that I can help you. No cost. I'm more than happy to assist you. Yeah, that's more or less it. Have a great rest of the day and hope you guys find value in this video. Oh, don't forget to like, subscribe, and do all that fun shit. Bye-bye.